Welcome to the Athletes Compass podcast. Join us each week as sports scientist and founder of Athletica.ai, Dr. Paul Laursen, athlete, coach, and sports scientist Marjaana Rakai, coach and cyclist Paul Warloski, and everyday athletes discuss training, racing, and improving health and fitness. Get ready for your journey to peak performance. Hello and welcome to the Athletes Compass podcast, where we navigate training, fitness, and health for everyday athletes. Today, as part of our focus on everyday athletes, we get to interview Cindy Maloney, an endurance athlete who recently completed a pretty perfectly paced marathon and has done a ton of endurance events. Thank you for joining us, Cindy. Can you tell us about your athletic background and what initially got you into endurance sports?
I would say that I kind of got into endurance sports a little bit later in life, probably more in my 20s. I started running a little bit when I was in university. And then when I graduated, I moved out west to the Canadian Rockies, where I lived in Jasper, Alberta, and I started to do lots of running there, and I bought a mountain bike and really got into mountain biking, decided that I wanted to run a marathon. So in my kind of mid-20s, I ran my first marathon with a friend and kind of did that for 6 years in a row, one marathon a year, along with doing lots of mountain biking. And then moved to Calgary, bought a road bike, and decided, hey, I can run, I can bike, I just swim a little bit, and decided to sign up for a half Iron distance race.
That was your first triathlon, Cindy?
Yes. My daughter had just been born, and at the tail end of my maternity leave is when I did that triathlon. So I didn't do a lot of training, but I really enjoyed it, and I thought I'd like to one day do a full Ironman. So I think that's kind of when I got the bug, but having a small baby and toddler, I realized I couldn't train. So kind of took a break from that, so about 7 years, and then kind of got back into it, did a couple more, and then fast forward to 2020, started with Athletica, and then really got into doing the Ironmans.
Like Cindy was literally like one of the first people ever on the platform. And she's been there from day one, providing feedback. And she's, instrumental part of the evolution of Athletica, since 2020, right? Cindy, on behalf of the whole team at Athletica, we're just incredibly grateful for your contributions for all these many years, your patience with us. And hopefully we've got a win-win relationship going on.
That's great. I think incredibly impressive that your first triathlon effort was a half Ironman. I mean, most people start with a sprint, but you just went right for the fun stuff.
Yes.
What are some of the endurance accomplishments that you're most proud of that you've done?
Well, I would definitely have to say my Ironman race in Kona last year. There was a big lead up to it, starting with my first Ironman in 2022, but I'd been training for that for a couple of years during the COVID times when all the races got canceled. So when I actually did qualify for it, everything just fell in place. I think, with every race I've done, there's always a few things that, you wish would have gone better, or you feel like, oh, maybe if I'm in my training, I should have done this or that. But definitely with the Kona race, everything fell into place perfectly with my training, following the Athletica plan with my nutrition during the race, all the heat prep leading up to going to Kona, my time in Kona, everything was amazing, training on the island. And then I just felt like everything played out as I thought it could be, based on all the training I'd done and all the work I'd put towards it. So it was something I'm really proud of. It was like a really great accomplishment for me, I felt. And then more recently, I did a marathon earlier this year, and I was yes, I get proud of that because I had done 6 marathons before, but I knew that I could do that. I was more fit than I was back in my 20s when I was training for those. And so to be able to kind of show that through being able to train properly, and just follow all the steps and follow Athletica, and then to see it play out how I was hoping it would. It's amazing.
Cindy, congratulations for all those amazing accomplishments. And I've truly enjoyed watching you and tracking you on trackers and checking your amazing marathon in Calgary, which is like perfectly paced. And I also enjoy you joining our Wednesday morning workouts. I think originally we started following each other on Instagram, and then we did 2022, we did St. George. We didn't met in person then, but I was so lucky. Yeah, I was so lucky to meet you last year in BC, and we went mountain biking, and like your fitness is just unreal. I was struggling on that day to keep up with you, but it was a lot of fun.
Yes.
But I want to go back to how you make all these crazy things happen. Like you have full-time work and 2 kids. Tell us how you make that, everyday life happen with Ironman training.
Having a consistent schedule really helps. With all the half Ironman or like full Ironman training, the schedules always seems to be about the same. And so knowing each day what it's going to be like, then it's easier to plan. I think I'm pretty efficient with fitting in lots of different things, prepping my meal, because I do a lot of my workouts at my lunch hour during work. So I have to have like a lunch prepped to bring to work, and breakfast as well. It's really just like being organized, I would say. Getting up early in the morning to fit in the workout before work. Everything just kind of goes like clockwork. I mean, sometimes it's challenging. Like with my kids being older, so they're both teenagers, and so they're very independent. So it doesn't impact too much the family dynamics with the training. So it works out. Yeah, I mean, if it was 10 years ago, it would have been more challenging, which I think is why I've been able to dedicate more time into doing the Ironman builds. Definitely with younger kids, it would have been way more challenging.
Before kids, when you did those 6 marathons in 6 years, and then the first half Ironman at the end of your maternity leave, what was the thought process of taking a break? Like, was it difficult to say, hey, I'm going to take a break? Or like, how did you keep fit? Because obviously you didn't just let everything go. I know, like you must have done something to be able to perform so well now.
I think, yeah, I mean, I've always tried to maintain fitness. I mean, I know when I was training for that half Ironman, a lot of my runs were like pushing a stroller, and I didn't do a lot of riding. Yeah, I remember feeling it on the bike. So like, ooh, I definitely haven't done anything over 70K type thing. So, but I mean, I've always loved mountain biking as well. And so I think I just fit it in here and there, not to the level that I do now, but I guess I've always maintained fitness. And I think just as a family, we bike together when we can. Just kind of always kept it going, but not specifically training for something.
From what I see in Cindy's training, she just strikes a really good balance. She does meld her training with her social life and these sorts of things, right? Like, because I'm reading her comments and stuff on Athletica, and you can see like she's rode with Paul, her husband, right? And then caught up with another friend for a run and these sorts of things. So I just, from what I see from Cindy, she really strikes a really nice balance between the social elements and getting her done and killing it on the world stage.
Now you're racing 50 plus, age group 50 plus?
I am.
Have you noticed any differences since you started training, like with Athletica the last 4 years, like it getting older?
Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of surprised that I was able to put in the volume that I've been able to do for all the training. Like, I remember talking to a friend who lives in Revelstoke who was doing Ironman training and asking him, how many hours he trains. And he told me 18 hours. And I thought, oh my gosh, like I can't even imagine. But, I definitely got up there, for many weeks. And I think my fitness got to a level where I could just kind of do it day in, day out for like chunks of time. I do notice that, there's always a body part of me that's sore. My joints are sore in the morning. Sometimes I feel like a really old person getting out of bed, but once I move around, I'm fine. But I think I've just been able to maintain being healthy using Athletica. Like I generally, like, I just do not get sick. I'm a healthy person, which has really helped be consistent with my training. Like there's nothing really that's taken me out for a long period of time. So I think part of that is, just following Athletica and it not really overtraining me, and listening to my body as well, because definitely there are some sort of like, oh, I'm really tired and I don't think I can do this next workout. So just leave it.
Cindy, we have 3 coaches here, between the 3 of us. What's your next goal, and what questions would you have or do you have for us as coaches about your training or about anything that you're doing with your endurance work?
Well, I'm going to be signed up for a mountain bike race in September, and it's a local race. It's called the Revi 50, and that's kind of my next race on the docket. The format of the race is a kind of lead out on a road, I think behind like a police car, and then once you kind of get through town and onto kind of the other road that leads you to the mountain bike trail, then it's kind of go time. Just from previous experience, when I did a 6-day stage race that kind of always had that format, a bit of a lead out and a road section to break people up before you got into the single track. That was the section where I always thought that was my weakest. Is it better to do kind of an all-out effort on that road section to try and get in the front before you get into the single track, where then it can get a little bit congested? And how best to kind of train for that? Because in all of my other kind of Ironman and, half Ironman races, it's always just a kind of a steady endurance effort and never like a big surge like that.
Yeah, I know that you're doing 30/30s and 40/20s as part of your training. It kind of depends on what your goals are for the race. I mean, are you looking to win age groups or do well in your age group?
Well, of course, it's my goal to win.
Yeah, okay, then. Then I would definitely say that with those kind of lead outs, then burning a match to be up front is important. And then having the fueling to stay with it, keep the carbohydrates on board, because that's a pretty big effort to stay on board. But then once you get into the single track, then you can recover. So it's a chance,
right.
So I would say that doing the 30/30s and the 40/20s will prepare you for that kind of effort. And then putting in the time, on the mountain bike trails, you've got a bit of an advantage that those are your home trails. So know the course and know all the places where there are going to be pinch points and where people will get stacked up and where you can pass.
Yeah, that's great advice.
Right.
And I would say exactly the same. The 30/30s, 40/20s will be, they'll raise VO2 and threshold, because you'll be doing them, above the sustainable intensity that you're going to go at during that lead out. I'd also get clarity on the duration of the lead out. I would even try to do that even on your road bike, just to give you an idea of like, well, what is it probably going to take,
yes,
in terms of the all out duration of this, and so that you're right there, and and I would maybe even do a couple preps as well, just to kind of like, even, if you can all out it, and then see what it feels like to do single track thereafter, right? Because here in Revi, we have a lot of hills. So I can imagine that that won't be a single track necessarily that is on the flats. I'm imagining that could be a single track that's going up.
It's tantrum up, which Paul knows probably not very technical.
Tantrum
Yeah.
is super technical. It's like root city, right? Like
Yes.
but I think we
Yeah.
both probably know it well. I've had a couple falls there in the rain. The roots are so
Yeah.
slippery. It's
Okay, that's
nasty.
great advice. Thank you. And
Yeah.
I did have another question. It's more in regards to next year. I was considering doing the Boston Marathon because I did qualify. But then also I am missing triathlon a little bit because I have not done a triathlon this year. So I actually swapped for the Coeur d'Alene 70.3, which is in the end of June. And so Boston's at the end of April, Coeur d'Alene at the end of June. And so my question would be, so when I did the marathon training this year, I did a specific marathon block, and I did, of course, add in some swim biking, but the focus was just the marathon. Would you recommend that I do that again and then just swap over to a 70.3 shorter build? It would probably be like 7 weeks.
Yeah, that would be just pretty much more or less what you're doing, Cindy. I kind of keep an eye on you there, and yeah, like how you're doing that. You're continuing to sort of tick over in your swim, so you won't lose that. Plus, it's great cross training.
Right.
And then yeah, at least still 2 to 3 bike sessions on top of that. But yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
Boston's a really fun bucket list kind of race. Like that's pretty cool that you if you've qualified for sure to Boston, you're going to go there. That's pretty awesome. And yeah, I mean, you did so well last time for your Calgary race. I wouldn't do too much different if I were you. Like you know the recipe. And
Yeah.
yeah, again, I think it's you successfully, comfortably accumulated big training volume weeks. Yeah, the result was awesome. For the Kona race, I think you were 26th in your age category overall in the world.
27.
27. Okay, the other way. I'm close every time.
You're
And it was
close.
and what was the
Wow.
time? It was 11. It was a low 11.
11:09. 11:09.
11:09.
Wow.
11:09 in the heat of Kona, Hawaii. So yeah, that's pretty awesome.
That
Yeah,
was
thank you.
so amazing. I'm so impressed by the marathon in Kona. Like you
Yeah.
were sticking so evenly too. Like you know how to base a like perfect marathon. You have it in you.
I knew the training for marathons. I mean, I had a lot of volume, and I just had done that pace so often down Airport Way in Revelstoke that and I was really well, like I was heat acclimated, so the heat did not impact me at all. So really, it was just running that pace.
Cindy, I'm actually doing a podcast on heat with a guru after this one in the Training Science podcast. But and we're going to talk about this in it. But I'm really curious as to the strategies that you used as an everyday athlete to prepare yourself for Kona, because let's be honest, a lot of people don't say that I prepared well for the heat and it felt good on the day. It's usually the opposite. So if you wouldn't mind, can you reveal your secrets for everyone else if you remember them?
Well, actually, I do. I remember I listened to one of your podcasts that you did with a female. I took notes on, because she did talk specifically about women and heat acclimating, and that it took longer for women to do that. So I did start, I think, 14 days before, and did a combination of sauna sessions and hot tub sessions because we have a hot tub at home. So whatever kind of worked best for the day and what I was training. And so I started probably like 10, 15 minutes like immediately after a session. So if I went for a run, then I'd come back, hop in the hot tub. Or if I was doing my swim at lunch, do my swim and then go right into the sauna. Kind of over that 14 days. I think there were 2 days where I didn't do it because I was actually really feeling the stress of it. Yeah, I was a bit worried that I'd maybe overcooked, but I was just listening to my body, and I needed a break from it. And also listening to that podcast, she did talk about, you could do a bunch of consecutive days, maybe take a break or two and then get back to it, and you still see the benefit. So I think by the end I was I think I was doing 40 minutes in the sauna, which was a really long time, but it was starting to feel okay. And then some of my last ride, all of my rides I was doing with fan. And the weather was getting cooler, so it wasn't particularly hot, like on the trainer or anything. But I just remember by the end, I was cold all the time because I was heat acclimated at that point. And I remember doing a run off the bike, and I had a million layers on, and just could not get warm. But once I arrived in Kona, then I felt fine, like right from the bat. As soon as I started just doing some of my training rides and training runs, I was like, oh, it actually doesn't feel too bad. And I had to keep checking with people, like, do you find it hot? My roommate there, she was doing some runs, and she hadn't done really that type of heat prep. And she was, like, oh my gosh, it's so hot and so dripping sweaty. And I was like, okay. In my head, I'm like, I don't feel like that at all.
It's funny because, so Cindy, you're in Revelstoke, BC, Canada, and you were saying that at the end of September, October, that the temperature was going down, it was cooling off. So you had to rely on doing passive heat adaptation sessions like sauna or hot tub right after your workout sessions. That I'm here in Houston, where it's like constant. I can't get away. We actually bought an ice pod, so I can get a tiny little relief whenever I want to. I can go in the ice tub. But I wanted to ask you how you felt the stress. Like, how did you feel, like super thirsty or just like fatigued, or did you do any modifications to your diet or anything like that?
Well, I think when I first was, really feeling the stress, it was more when I was sleeping. I felt like I couldn't sleep, and I felt like my heart was racing a little bit just as well. And so I was like, ooh. So I definitely took a break from it for a day, whether it was related to that or if I was just kind of on the edge of my fitness and the edge of the heat training and everything else. But I guess that's how I felt. It was like my body felt a bit stressed for sure.
And you arrived in Kona like how many days before? You were there for a while.
Yeah, 9 days.
Okay. Yeah.
Which I thought was really beneficial just to get the lay of the land, and it was fun to be there as well.
Yeah, super cool.
It was such a great outcome too, because I can even remember you kind of questioning the whole thing because it's pricey to go, and your family wasn't going with you as well, and it was kind of
right.
Yeah, it was kind of the Cindy project, right? And
yes,
there's kind of a lot riding on it for you as well, I'd imagine, from a personal standpoint. And like you didn't want to go there and not show up and at least give your best, right?
I want to go back to your marathon training. Like, what was your longest runs, and what was the volume going into the Calgary Marathon?
Yes, I was. When I built the plan, I kind of look forward, even though I know it changes. And I did see some of the weeks that were up in the 100 kilometers, and I remember thinking, how am I going to do that? But we'll just see. And I mean, in the end, like my longest run ended up being, I think, 28K. I thought I might get to 32K, but it just worked out. But I felt like I had enough volume, and plus I had done marathons recently with the Ironmans that I wasn't worried about not being able to do the distance on the day. Like that wasn't my concern. But because I knew I got quite a bit of volume, and I think kind of at my peak weeks, I got up to 100K a couple times, and like weeks prior to that, 95, 90. So there was definitely a progression. I did find it as hard or even harder than Ironman training because of the load on the body, just all that running.
Yeah.
Was quite, I thought, marathon will be easy. I'm only doing one sport. I mean, I wasn't just doing one sport. I was incorporating swimming and biking as well, but it was hard for sure.
Gosh, do we ever get that question a lot, right? Like people look at our plans and they say, well, there's not long enough runs in here. Like there's no way I'm going to be able to do a marathon with such short runs. But you outlined why that led to great success. If you just have if you throw a 40K effort into there, think of how much recovery that you need now between that. So you've lost training consistency, but you kept up the overall load with smaller bits of that, accumulating consistently 100-kilometer weeks or thereabouts in the lead up. So you think about the resilience that you've added onto your being. It's a better formula for achieving what you want to set out to do. So yeah, thanks so much for asking it and answering it, Cindy.
We've talked about too, like the frequency of running a lot. Like I'm trying to build up my running volume because I think that's my weakness in triathlon is the run, and I want to do better. But like I've struggled to get the volume in, and instead of trying to do a one big run, I think it's important to like go often. So that's what I'm trying to do.
And Cindy, what were your frequency tips for achieving 100K weeks or thereabouts?
Yeah, definitely. There had to be some multiple runs in a day. Sometimes I would tag it on to different things. So, if I had a strength session, I might do like a 4K run and then do strength. And plus, maybe I'd already done 14K in the morning. So now I'm at 18K. So that was one strategy. I ended up doing kind of one treadmill session a week, and it was about 4 or 5K. And I did it at the gym on the treadmill because I got a little bit extra volume in. Yeah. So that's kind of how I did it. I definitely broke it up to multiple runs in a day.
I want to touch on the pacing because you did it so brilliantly on Calgary Marathon. You negative split it. I can't remember exactly, but I was like looking at the splits on Strava, and I'm like, my jaw just dropped. It was just so well paced, and it was cold too. So like you mentioned that you were cold.
Yes, I mean that was definitely a big challenge for me with knowing what a marathon pace was, and I think I hinted at Paul like a few times in my comments in Athletica. What's my pace be? And I was really hoping he would just tell me what I should do. But because I didn't have anything to go off of other than my marathon 6 years ago and my Ironman marathon, which you can't really compare, I knew there was a bit of a range, but if, you have to kind of pick a goal for a marathon. So I chose 3:30, and I kind of had that goal right from the start of the training. And I didn't know if I would get to that or not, but I was hoping by the end of the training that I would be confident enough to know, like, I think I can do it. And, those last couple of weeks, there was quite a bit of more tempo runs. So I was starting to get a feel of what marathon paces feel like, and it felt hard. And so I was starting to doubt my goal of 3:30. So I just kind of put that off the table and just told myself, you just made up this number in your head. Like, you don't have to reach that. Like, your fastest marathon time prior is 3:48 or 3:49, and I'm sure you can do that. So just try and go by feel. And that's what Paul had said. You'll know like what the feel should be. And so once I kind of put that goal aside, when I started to run, I started with the 3:40 pacer because I thought, less pressure. Start with the 3:40 pacer and see if I can get faster. And I pretty much sat between the 3:40 and the 3:35 pacer for the majority of the run. But then in the distance, I saw the 3:35 pacer, and I was getting closer to them. So I was like, okay, let's keep it going. And I was feeling good. So obviously I didn't go out too fast, and the pace that I went out at was kind of where I should be. And once I passed that 3:35 pacer, I had like 10K to go. And just was like, okay, let's try and get that goal. So I ran as hard as I could those last 10K, and didn't quite get to 3:30, but I also did run longer than the marathon distance. So my Garmin says I did the marathon in 3:29, but unfortunately I was weaving around people, and so added extra distance, which is why my chest time was 3:31. So in my head, I met my 3:30 goal.
Awesome.
So Cindy, one of the, I've been listening to your stories and all the things that you've done and all the accomplishments you've had. What's your why? Why do you do all this?
Well, I often wonder that, especially, since I turned 60 and I was like, oh, why am I training 18 hours a week? Not that I'm doing that right now, but yeah, honestly, like I love being outdoors. I love running. I guess like the runner's high. I love mountain biking. I love being in the forest. Like living in Revelstoke's amazing. We have so much kind of at our doorstep. And I might not always want to race. Like I am very competitive at the moment, so maybe that won't leave. But I think like kind of long term, like I want to be able to do some bike touring. My husband, enjoy biking too. So that's kind of when we talk about retirement, that's what we kind of think about is, traveling to different places around the world with our bikes and cruising around. So I think, I'm hopefully setting myself up for that. But yeah, I mean, I just enjoy the competition. I like being able to push my body and see like what it can do, like what's my highest potential. And yeah, it's been amazing using Athletica because I just feel like I have been able to kind of, reach my true potential.
Thanks, Cindy. Honored you feel that way.
What role does nutrition play in your training?
I would say like I have made some changes in the last year and a half, and mostly focusing more on eating more protein. And I really feel like it have made a difference. You do hear a lot about as you get older, you should focus on eating more protein. So that's what I've been doing. And I think, it's allowed me to stay healthy, allowed me to kind of train every day consistently. I do eat carbohydrates. I don't consider myself a carbohydrate athlete, but I would say lower carbohydrate athlete. I try to eat healthy, but I do, of course, have my things that are maybe not so healthy that I do eat. But just like a general healthy diet, I would say for the most part.
Awesome. And then you also do strength training, yeah?
Yes. Yeah. Definitely once. Usually try to do twice a week for sure.
When I think of Cindy, I think of a principle that we should all take, is that there's more than we know that's within all of us, and she's exemplified that when you listen back to her whole story. And a lot of these scientific principles of training can help guide all of us towards getting to realizing our full potential. And some of the ones she's demonstrated include training consistency, includes training volume and frequency. So she's managed with Athletica to gain all of those, sticking to her program. And then even the pacing as well, which has probably come from she's developed that herself from that frequent training. And the more training that you do, we're going to learn this from Matt Fitzgerald, who's a partner with Athletica, and in his pacing book, we're going to be speaking about this. And it's the more experienced athletes, they tend to be better pacers as well. So whether Cindy knows it or not, but when she's out there for every single session, she's actually learning intensity control and how to pace as well. Yeah, for everyone, I hope you're as inspired as I am to go out and be Cindy Maloney's.
Yeah.
So thank you.
Well, that is all for this week. Thank you for listening, and join us next week for the Athletes Compass podcast. You can help us by asking your training questions in the comments, liking and sharing the podcast, giving us 5-star reviews, and engaging with us on our social media. For Cindy Maloney, Marjaana, Rakai, and Dr. Paul Laursen, I am Paul Warloski, and this has been the Athletes Compass podcast. Thank you for listening. We hope you enjoyed another episode of the Athletes Compass podcast, your North Star through the sometimes complicated world of training for your endurance sport. For a deeper dive into the science of endurance sports, listen to the Training Science podcast and check out the adaptive AI training platform, Athletica.ai. And thanks.